Okay, we made it around the whole park. We did have some challenging times. It's a beautiful park, even without the trees with leaves, you know. It was nice and cool out there. I got some treats, you know, this little holder. It could be for the pitties or it could be for a fishing pole. And then I found this, a bobbin, which is great when you're fishing. Yeah. So, I guess that means soon I'll be getting out here to go fishing, right? That's the one thing, you know, I think I would dread is having to sit there and hold the fishing pole and not catch any fish for hours. So yeah, it's nice now that I have a fishing pole holder, right? And that's how the steaks look when, you know, you can go and buy a steak for your dog, right? But I think those steaks, you screw them in to the ground so they can't just tug themselves free. Right? So, yeah. I was able to do my most favorite activity in the whole wide world, which is go for a pity walk with the pitties. The sun and the moon. My pitties, they're my sun and my moon. Yeah. So now I go back home, give them their dinner, you know, let them, you know, run off a little exertion, right? They was able to, you know, sniff some pea meal. That should have made them happy. And yeah, just keep pressing forward, doing what we can. Like I said, you know, if they do have people out here that's, you know, helping folks, you know, or they do have, you know, social engineers, you know, who decide who can do what and who can make money, who can live here or there, you know, hey, you know, I'm not one that you should allow to be drifting in the wind. I keep telling you that. I'm not that one that you should be allowing to drift in the wind. I know nepotism is a strong and, you know, and hard emotion. But at the same time, you know, you have to realistically, you know, deal with people the way they need to be dealt with, especially your people, right? Those are the hardest ones. Like, you know, telling my daughter, you know, you can't come live with me if you're still doing, you know, weed. You definitely can't live with me if you're doing alcohol, right? Because even though alcohol is a legalized drug, you know, weed is not legalized here in Texas. It's not. Right? And I think the reason why, you know, Texans don't want to legalize weed is that, you know, they don't want to be sitting up here dealing with a whole bunch of, you know, people in an idiot frame of mind talking about, you know, don't break my vibe, don't break my vibe. And they're not listening, they're not doing what they're supposed to do, you know. And a lot of them, you know, they were, you know, wanting to do what the other people had done. And yeah, they were slipping. They slipped up and found out, oh my God, their whole land got gentrification. Yes, their whole land got gentrification by people from the West and people from the East, right? These were the people talking about, here, let's smoke some weed, make weed legal, right? And everything went up, right? And when they couldn't afford, the stats, to rent an apartment, right? They talked people into, turning their homes into Airbnbs. Another gentrification move, right? Now, the value of homes went up so high because they're now B&Bs. Are you kidding me? Right? The more bedrooms, the more bathrooms, the better B&B price that you can get. Right? I got 4 bedrooms, 3 baths. As an Airbnb, up to par, I could make pretty good money if they, if I was able to get that kind of money. A startup, right? But usually they only give these startups to strangers. They don't give startup money to homeowners. Right? They're even reluctant to give them a HELO loan, right? A home equity loan. Even when they have like the 401k, to cover it. And speaking of, credit, right? I said that's all people live off of nowadays is credit, right? This guy had the audacity to come online talking about, credit. Now, I remember credit was only established based off of, what I had in my savings. They didn't just give me credit without having, like a savings. This wasn't one of those credit cards, where it was your savings, right? Like, that's like, how you start in your credit. But they evaluated you that if you have like $3,000 saved, right, in your savings account, they thought you were good for, you have financial responsibility to be able to handle $3,000 or $5,000 worth of credit. And they used to give us about $3,000 to $5,000 worth of credit, right? So this guy, he looks up and he starts asking AI, what's the average credit limit for people in their 20s nowadays? Well, these people in their 20s nowadays, they are getting like $13,000 to $15,000, worth of credit. Damn well they ain't got that kind of savings. Right? So they're living off of credit, right? I remember campaigns where they was attacking the college students, with having all of these, credit card offers, right there on the college campus. Right? They're going to give credit cards to struggling students. Damn, that little walk made me start sweating. So yeah, they're getting $10,000, credit cards, and they never had an opportunity, to save that kind of money, right? So that's another gentrification, right? And so many of them, they can't even get a job unless, they have a degree. And I'm sitting up here listening to people talk about, oh, for you to get a degree, you're gonna have to get a student loan, right? But you can't even get an application unless you have a degree, right? They don't even care if the degree is related. They just want to know that you're disciplined and you're smart enough to take instructions to learn. Not just once or twice, but damn, over the course of 4 years, can you listen, take instruction, learn, apply what you learn? Now, some people can't, right? We have a lot of dysfunction in America, right? We have children that are born with disabilities that, haven't even been identified yet, right? We don't know, we might have to look up to see if they've done a study, of what happens, to children who are born under the influence of a mother that's smoking weed. We already know it was very damaging if she was drinking alcohol and if she was smoking cigarettes. We don't know, it hasn't been talked about, or we don't know if there was a study that was done, about mothers smoking weed while they're pregnant. Oh my God, the temperature got up to 50 degrees out there. Yay! It's supposed to get a little warmer now. It is. Damn it. And I'm steaming up the car. Me and the pitties. No, not so much them. It's me. It's me. Fogging up the windows. So, yeah. But that's the whole gentrification that happened right here in America that looked like inflation. Now, I might have to, do one of those gentrification versus inflation. What's the difference? Right? Because a lot of times, we see that there's similar effects. Similar effects with slight differences. Damn, that backyard looked like it was made to do parties. Must be some kind of speakeasy. And that's another thing we were talking about. He was talking about, because he used to be a bartender. And he was talking about how the alcohol industry has lost like over $8 million worth of alcohol purchases. And of course, they were kind of debating why, and it was like, oh, is it people getting more on a health kick? Is it because it's very, it's so expensive? And it was like, yeah, all the above, right? People are getting more on a health kick, and, it is getting more expensive, right? It costs like, for a rum and coke, just a simple cocktail, costs $13. Back in the day, a beer cost you $3. I can't remember if he said how much a beer today costs. But yeah, so surely it's gone up. I've been laying around in the bed all morning because it was extremely cold. I'm telling you, this morning it was 28 degrees this morning. I think yesterday it was even colder than that early morning. And I usually wake up before, it gets extremely cold. I wake up. So yeah, I guess I'll go back home. Even though it's so nice right now. I feel like riding around just a little bit. Just a little bit. I woke up late, after I went back to sleep. Because I think this morning I was awake about 5:30ish, right? And I stayed up until I just fell asleep, watching YouTube. So getting back to what I was talking about, this guy was saying, how he used to, he made a living 5 years as a bartender. 5 to 7 years? Something like that. As a bartender, right? And so, people were just throwing him tips and, taking drinks and stuff. And I guess, he was getting that money like a stripper on the pole. Okay? Like a stripper on the pole. Getting the money. Even if I buy that brand, say it doesn't go up, right? So this place says ER 24/7, and they were saying that they are actually an emergency room. Total care. Our mission is to heal. So these are like, these little, urgent care, locations, that got all of these loans and stuff, to be your neighborhood, urgent care center. Now they want you to, support them. Care that's fast, close, and reliable. Total care. And Honestly, if they can give you the type of care that you would get at the local hospital, this seems more reasonable, right? It's more personable. Sure, sometimes the hospital, they get more funds, they get more government funds. They get more government funds, right? And then certain hospitals, they are a lot nicer than other hospitals because I guess the taxes or something, or, the fact that, they may have to treat more people who don't have the means in a way to pay for care. So yeah. Oh, I passed my house. we riding. I got my pitties with me. We riding. Yeah. Oh my God. It finally happened. That RB has closed down. RB took a hit. Arby's took a hit. I guess they thought the sirloin nuggets was gonna save them, but it didn't. It didn't save them. They shut down. They took a hit. So Starbucks is stating on the sign, protein made delicious. Okay, Starbucks. So a lot of people, they are adding protein to their coffee. Like myself, I am adding real milk, right? Let's face it, creamers, they aren't giving us anything except junk. And it's a type of junk that if we really think about it, we're addicted to it, right? We'll search the land and find some really good creamer. And if that's not addiction, I don't know what is. Right? Because I certainly was going to go ahead and buy that creamer, even though I know it went up 30-40 cents. Right? Because the creamer is damn near $3 now at Walmart. I'm like, what? And it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous of how fast the money is going up. It shouldn't go up this fast. That's the problem. And a lot of the times these businesses, they made some really bad business decisions. And they're trying to cover their ass by, basically, exploiting, legitimate business, right? They made some bad business decisions behind the scenes, and they're like, well, I'm gonna make it up, and that's another way of gentrification, right? Because they have made bad business deals behind the scenes, and instead of, shutting it down, and starting all over, they're like, I'm gonna make it up in another business venture or with this other business venture, right? And they'll raise the prices, because they see themselves as a business enterprise, right? And even though you should not commingle your money, because it's not a wise business decision to commingle your money, right? They figure, commingling of the money is okay when it's your money, but it's a bad business decision. Even if you think that you have it like set in your mind or even set on paper that you commingled the money, the problem is that the money should have been set straight, right? And a lot of times that's where the intentions come in. Oh, it was my intentions, to pay that fund back, this, that, and the third. It didn't happen. I forgot. It became impossible. Who knows? Right? Actually kind of glad they're riding with me. They're so calm. This used to be a familiar activity for us, was to go walking and go for a ride, go back home and and have dinner, yes, and some water, yes, and then relax and do the same thing all over again tomorrow. Okay, ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with that at all. At one time they thought it was a horrible routine. Now, I think they missed it. I think they kind of missed it. Right? I hope they miss it enough to cooperate with me. To be good pitties. Make it easier on me. Make it easier on me. So we're not going to go too far. We're just going to go down here and then turn around and come back. We can get the vitamin D. But yeah, there's a lot of people riding around. I think next week I'm gonna start cleaning out the Infiniti. And then maybe boost it, give it a boost, right? Because I guess if I clean it out, get all my remnants out of there, like I said, it was just a shock. It was a shock to me the way, the smoke started coming out of the back of my car. It went pop, you know, and I was like, what is that? And then all of a sudden I looked in back of me and there was all this smoke. The smoke was so thick I couldn't even see the road. I'm like, I never seen smoke like this before. You know, I was able to drive home. I wasn't really, you know, pushing it or nothing, because it was like the more I pushed it, the more smoke came out of the car. So I just took my time, came on home, had the flashers on. I was as embarrassed as hell. I still remember it. It's etched in my mind. And then I was just glad that I was able to get it home and park it in the driveway. Right? And I was thinking to myself, you know, man, it sure would be nice. It would be really, really nice, you know, if the guy, the neighbor guy that used to live a couple of houses down was still living there, because he used to help me with the repairs on my vehicle, right? Wouldn't charge me nothing, you know. He just enjoyed the idea of being able to help someone and also be able to increase his mechanical skills. Right? And I just thought, wow, you know, what happened to those people? That's what I'm thinking now. What happened to those kind of people? Where'd they go? So, and there is a mechanic that, you know, used to live a couple of doors down on the other street, right? But I passed by there today because he used to be out there, you know, looked like he was trying to restore some really old, you know, like classic, you know, trucks. And I passed by there and they had this great big dumpster in their driveway, and either they're doing a major renovation or they sold the house, and whoever bought the house is doing a major renovation. Sure if I want to go around the whole lake or if I just want to go down this part of the lake. Well, I think I'm going to go just part of the lake, even though I really like going around the whole lake. Part of the lake is good. And I'm blessed that I'm able to at least ride around the lake. I'm blessed that I'm at least being able to drive my pitties to the park and we can walk around there. You know, I would like to feel good about walking around in the neighborhood, right? But, you know, there's a lot of protective dogs in the neighborhood, you know, and they just get to barking and, you know, and everybody's just all riled up, and dogs, you know, they get all riled up, and you know, and I was like, my goodness, if it wasn't for a fence, you know, they probably would be having dog fights out here, the way they acting. So yeah, I'm gonna come down here and then I'm gonna show you this beautiful picture. This is a beautiful picture right here. Look at this. See how beautiful this looks? It just looks absolutely beautiful. Down here. And people are enjoying. They out there fishing. See? When you can hear my dog, she's like, are we getting out again? No, baby, you're not. You're not getting out again. I just came down here to sightsee. And these guys, they took their bikes down here. Family bike riding day. Yeah. It's so nice. Oh my God. I'm just gonna stop it. Look at that. I got my biddies with me. And then looky. I just had to stop. It was just a moment. It was the moment that made me do it. Good thing there wasn't nobody behind me. Except that beautiful pitty back there. Miss Moon. Miss Moon. You're on camera. Oh my God. Is this a doodle? It's a doodle. Yep, it's a doodle. It's big. I'm going to let this car go around. Park up here a little bit. Let them go around because, you know, they came down here quick. Planning on riding around the lake that quick. We're gonna ride around slow. Yeah, they going about 30 miles an hour riding around here. Way above the speed limit. My dogs are wondering, are we getting out again? No, you're not. You're not getting out. Here, sniff the air. That's all you get. What kind of dog is that? I don't know what kind of dog that is. Got the bushiest tail. Wow. I just love seeing people out with their dogs. I love it. Even some of them look so small. Oh my God. It's a teacup something. It was so tiny, I promise you, it couldn't be no more than 2 pounds. speaking of, because what made me think was if I had to, if I had to do it all over again and get me another dog, I would probably get me like a toy or a teacup, right? Something that, I would call my emotional dog and be able to take it wherever I go. It's not going to cost me an arm and a leg to feed them, take care of them, pick them up, bathe them, and all of that stuff. It's not going to be strenuous. I could just do it right in the kitchen sink, right? Okay, now, I've been watching this lady, right? And, what was her name? Anyway, she is kind of like a dog trainer, right? She found this dog, and so she fell in love with the dog, and she started training the dog, and things got really rough for her here in the States. Got really, really rough. Now, she's a beautiful girl. She's got all these tattoos and stuff on her head and on her body, and her hair is in dreadlocks, right? She's blonde, blue eyes, beautiful girl, right? The only thing I would say would enhance her and make people treat her better is if, she had more buttocks, because our society is insane when it comes to the buttocks. They don't care if it's like apple bottom. You just gotta have some buttocks, right? And this lady, she really doesn't have that, right? And I'm like, I kind of identify with her, no buttocks, right? But she's very healthy, very lean. Like I said, she's very proportionate when it comes to her body. I believe we've seen her do some headstands. Yeah. Right. So she came back to America. First she tried going to England. Well, England was, I guess, one of the easiest places for her to get a visa for her and the dog. I don't know. Maybe she thought England was the place for her. I don't know. Right? But then she went there and she was like, this is not the place. So then she tried Spain. She really liked Spain, right? However, she was having problems, getting a visa to stay in Spain. So maybe it was a visa issue, right? Because she was really trying hard, to get a visa to be able to stay in Spain with her dog. She loved it there. She loved the food. She loved the environment. She even rented a van a couple of times, to scout out the place, and, and her, and the dog, could be, camping out, next to the water, free, right? The whole vibe was she wanted to be free. That's what I was picking up, right? The whole reason why she left America is because she was starting to feel imprisoned, right? She was starting to feel like she was being forced, to live a lifestyle she didn't want to live, right? And I'm hearing this more and more and more of Americans speaking up saying, look, this is not the lifestyle we want to live, right? They want to be free. I'm trying to talk over this loud ass, raggedy ass truck. Did you hear it? Yeah. So somebody need to give him a noise pollution ticket or a warning. You know, of course, the first one would be a warning. Sir, your vehicle has exceeded the allowable decibels. You're gonna have to fix that fucking muffler. He got 2 raggedy ass mufflers on his car, on his truck. Anyway, so getting back to what I was saying. So more and more I'm starting to hear Americans, you know, say, look, you know, this is not the life that we want to live. You know, this is not, you know, this is not cool, right? First they tried, you know, peaceful protest, right? Then they tried their best to run away, right? A lot of them, they left the country, you know, and then they're starting to see all of the barriers that they're getting, you know, trying to go live abroad. Visa problems, income problems, language problems, cultural problems, you know, a lot of problems, right? And so a lot of them, you know, they keep, you know, jumping from country to country to country because, yeah, even if you get a residency visa, you're still only talking about 4 years. You know, and sometimes you can go someplace where the cost of living is cheaper and save money, right? But they don't want you staying there causing gentrification in their country. You're going to go over there and buy land and build a business, you know, and make the citizens of that country look stupid and poor. Stop it. Stop it. Don't do it. So yeah, that's what a lot of these countries are realizing, that, you know, America is suffering financially. You know, they have a huge exodus. You know, now we understand, you know, why black people would leave here, right? We expect the world, you know, to receive the black people with open arms, understanding that they perhaps was kidnapped and brought over here to work as slaves. And the South will admit they had slaves, right? The North won't admit it, but they had slaves too, until they said, we're not gonna keep doing this. Right? The South, they still want slaves. They're like, they need people out there working their crops. So, and you know, they feel like they have a vendetta, right? Because they lost the Civil War. Right? They still want to pay back the North for whooping their ass. Even though the North is not rubbing it in their face. They're not rubbing it in their face. They're like, that's just how it is. You joined the Union. Now we 48 states strong. Right? And they still can't appreciate that. As being a part of the Union, you 48 states strong, you know, and y'all are living better than most people. Even though, you know, you're struggling. right? But the struggling here, it can be homelessness. But here, even the homeless, can get shelter at times. They can live in shelters, They have to keep moving, trying to find someplace and somewhere, to work and live and, and all of that stuff. They have to figure out, what is it going to take to be cooperative, right? Start offering your services, right? When they say, hey, you need money, you got to give in order to get money, right? What do you have to give? You have to give service in order to get money. All right, you can say, I know plumbing, I know electrical, I know how to do floors. Yeah, but go ahead and, go ahead and do it, with the understanding that it's better to get some business than to have no business. Right? Because you might think people can afford your services, but as you can see, 5 years down the line, no, they can't afford your services. So bring the cost of your services down, right? Even Trump is telling the supermarkets, listen, or telling and business people, bring your prices down. If you don't bring your prices down, you're going to regret it. You're going to go bankrupt. Won't nobody buy your shit. Won't nobody utilize your services. There are a lot of people who have a lot of free time on their hands. A lot. Right? Now, they could be out here doing shit like this. Right? Just setting up shop. Right? Even I thought about doing it. I'm like, wow, I could do this Valentine's Day, these Valentine's Day purses and try to sell them, But, I don't got that kind of hustle in me. I don't. Right? Because I would have to invest on what to put inside of the purses. Right? I figured, hey, a flower, a stuffed animal, some lip balm, and a candle. Boom. $20. Right? Wrap it up, make it look nice. And people can just give a $20, purse to whomever. But I ain't got that kind of money. Right? And that's what most people do. That's what the holidays are for. The whole holiday thing is, is to circulate, money. Is to put money back into circulation. I mean, I remember the last time I had checked, right? They wanted to charge me $1,200 to do tile work on the floor where I had bought the material. And I'm like, really? You know, I was feeling pretty foolish at that point because I was like, oh, you know, Empire Floors, they probably could have did the whole thing with their material in a day, and I wouldn't even have to move my shit out. Right? What I'm saying is, what should be an array of costs, right? You can't charge more than the commercial people out here doing legitimate business has. What do you call it? Their advertising cost. They have overhead cost. You know, they have liability insurance. You know, they're providing the materials. They got their own tools. You know, they're doing the clearing out and the putting back of furniture and all that. They're offering that cheaper than a home, than somebody that's just trying to, you know, what do you call it? A handyman, right? And even more than that, those places will also offer credit, right? They'll give you credit. They'll let you pay it out on payments. Whereas, you know, these handymen, they're like wanting all the money up front, you know, and they're not even getting the work done, you know, on time. They're taking too long to do the work, and, you know, and they don't have all of the tools, equipment, even transportation, and it's just like, what? You know, you charged me $1,200. I thought I was gonna get professional work. You never should have got even more than $300-400 for the bullshit that you taking me through, right? Because you got to store your shit, you know, in a storage area, you know, and movers and stuff because they can't move that shit. Oh my God, it was just ridiculous, right? You're expecting, you know, you're like, oh, you're gonna charge me like that much, you know, you that good, and they're not.